Gather round, gather round. Can you all hear me? Can everybody see me? Excellent. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 is my favourite Harry Potter film, and it is the best Harry Potter film. David Yates did such a perfect job at concluding this 8-film saga. I mean, yes, you can argue that Deathly Hallows Part 2 isn't a standalone film, and you do have to watch the rest of the films to get the full context of the film. I agree with that, but to me, as a emotional cinematic experience, Deathly Hallows Part 2 is just the best. The raw emotion this film manages to invoke in me is just so wonderful. It's so raw, and not only that, everybody is bringing their A game in this film. Particularly Daniel Radcliffe. This, to me, is his standout performance. I mean, just from the beginning, the film opens on just such a strong note. The scene where Snape is looking down at his authoritarian-like Hogwarts, and Lily's theme is playing in the background, is just so perfect. In many ways, it perfectly represents the loss of innocence that has occurred throughout the Harry Potter franchise. And then the part where the music swells, and then we get the title card of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, oh, it's so amazing. It gives me chills. I love it. Now, I think it's best if I just get my complaints of the film out of the way, just purely because if I don't, I will just be on a massive tangent about why I love this film so much. The film does deviate from the book at points just so it can pander to the audience who either didn't watch Deathly Hallows Part 1, or for new audiences who came to see the big finale of Harry Potter without having watched the other ones. A key example of this is Ollivander recapping what the Deathly Hallows are, even though in the books when Harry asks him, what do you know about the Deathly Hallows, he doesn't know anything. Also, Harry just comes across as unnecessarily harsh in that scene when he's just like, you're lying.
You're lying.
I mean, yes, I get it, fate of the world is at stake and everything, I get that, but to me, Book Harry is just a bit more politer, and he would have handled that situation in just a more tasteful way, instead of just going, you're lying. He tortured you, I don't care. What are the Deathly Hallows? The Broken Mirror subplot just doesn't make any sense, no matter how hard the script tries to justify it, just because why would Aberforth buy a broken mirror? I mean, he doesn't even know the mirror is connected to Harry, so why did he buy it in the first place? In the books, it makes sense because Albus told Aberforth to buy the mirror because he knew the two mirrors were connected. He knew Harry had a piece of the broken mirror beforehand, and so he told Aberforth to buy it when Mundungus raided number 12 Grimmauld Place. But the movie doesn't address that, so yeah, it's just a subplot that doesn't make any sense. Harry and Voldemort's connection gets altered in the films to make Harry almost like a Horcrux detector, which makes it easier for him to actually locate and find the Horcruxes because the movies didn't do a great job at explaining what the other Horcruxes were. Also, Voldemort feels pain in this film when the Horcruxes are destroyed, which then makes you wonder as to why he didn't feel the locket being destroyed in the first one. And this goes against the books because Voldemort doesn't know the Horcruxes are being destroyed until he finds out that the cup is stolen from Gringotts. And it makes sense in the books, whereas it doesn't make sense in the film, because in the books, Voldemort has ripped his soul into so many pieces he is detached from it. He can't feel it. But because the movies add in the sense of Voldemort needs to feel pain, it just doesn't make much sense. It's a weird change that isn't an entirely necessary change. Okay, I do want to bring up a problem with the book purely because it relates to the film, and that is the wand law that J.K. Rowling introduced in the Deathly Hallows book makes no sense and feels very much like a Deus Ex Machina. Why is this the first time we've ever heard about wands changing allegiances to another? Like, I get it, the wand chooses the wizard and all that, but in Deathly Hallows, it sort of just comes out of nowhere, and it just seems like, oh, it's so J.K. Rowling can make Harry Master the Elder Wand, so then the Avada Kedavra curse can backfire and kill Voldemort in the end. Also, the way the wands change allegiances are weird, so you have to win the wand from someone, but that can happen just by disarming them, which doesn't make any sense. So Draco originally becomes the Master of the Elder Wand because he disarmed Dumbledore. But if Dumbledore just picked up his wand again, would that count as Dumbledore reclaiming the Elder Wand as his own again? Like, I don't know. It's very confusing and it doesn't make much sense. Neville's heroic moment in the books is kind of lessened in the film. Like, it's still cool, but the book just does it better in the sense of Voldemort has frozen Neville, he puts the sorting hat on Neville's head, he sets it on fire, and then because Voldemort isn't Master of the Elder Wand at this point, the spell isn't as effective, so Neville can just break free of it. He takes the hat off, pulls out the sword, and then kills Nagini like that. It's a very quick and impactful moment, which then makes the final duel between Harry and Voldemort make more sense. But in the film, because Neville gets pushed away and then he has to like wake up unconscious and then kill Nagini afterwards, it makes the duel between Harry and Voldemort in the film kind of problematic, and I will address that later. The way it should have played out is, it's not over! Also, another problem I have with this film is they do not pay off the whole Grindelwald subplot at all. I mean, yes, granted, Deathly Hallows Part 1 did the bare minimum in setting up Grindelwald and casting Harry's doubt on his perception of Dumbledore, but the film doesn't even really address it. Even in the King's Cross sequence, Harry does not bring up Grindelwald, whereas in the book, when he does, it's a really powerful moment between the two in the books, because it's a really important moment for Harry and Dumbledore in the King's Cross sequence in the book, because this is the two of them seeing each other as equals, as they are. There is no pretense of, oh, this is Dumbledore, the big, mighty wizard. It is, this is Albus Dumbledore, the fuck up. The person that essentially allowed the second greatest dark wizard of all time to rise to power and kill hundreds of millions of muggles just because he himself was, sad that he couldn't go exploring the world and search for his own power. It's so important, and they didn't explore it, and it's so stupid, and it's like, is this the reason why we're getting the Fantastic Beasts movies that are now just exploring the Dumbledore-Grindelwald conflict? There are also details from the books that the films just completely ignore, and it does bug me. The whole you cannot apparate inside and outside of Hogwarts rule has just been completely abolished in this film. I mean, you see wizards apparating in and out of the castle like there is no tomorrow, and it's like, okay, so you're just completely ignoring that rule from the book. You have people just blocking Avada Kedavra like it's nothing, which just goes against the books because Avada Kedavra is an unblockable spell. You cannot block it. That is the point. Hagrid just sort of appears in the Forbidden Forest in the film, where the film just completely cuts out the subplot where the Acromantulars actually capture Hagrid and take him to the Death Eaters, but the film just doesn't address that, so he just appears in the Forbidden Forest. Also, does anybody remember Grawp, Hagrid's giant half-brother? Because the filmmakers clearly didn't. Like, this is the film where you have giants invading the castle, and the one giant that we had established previously in the films, Hagrid's half-brother Grawp, just isn't in the film, and it's like, what? Come on, at least have him fighting in the background somewhere. I guess he just died from that one arrow wound he got in Order of the Phoenix. Also, do you know what kind of infuriates me? The fact that they downplay the invisibility cloak in this film again. Like, the film is called Deathly Hallows, and the invisibility cloak is a Deathly Hallow, and yet Harry only uses it when the plot demands him to use it. Like, oh my god. How do you mess this up? It's in the title. Fred, Lupin, and Tonks also getting off-screen deaths is kind of disappointing. Like, come on, these are cool characters. Give them a cool death scene. And lastly, I'm not really a fan of the muted color palette of the 19 Years Later sequence. Like, for me, it just needs to be a bit brighter. It still has that sort of dour, gritty, realistic looking color palette that the film has, but just come on, a bit more colour, David Yates. Come on, this is the happy ending. But other than that, the film is excellent. I mean, if I really wanted to, I would just put the whole film in the best scenes segment, but instead I'll just give you the highlights because that just is a bit ridiculous. As mentioned prior, the opening scene with Lily's theme is just beautiful. I love this exchange between Harry and Griphook here.
How did you come by this sword?
It's complicated. Why did Bellatrix Lestrange think it should be in her vault at Gringotts?
It's complicated.
Harry's confrontation between Snape in the Great Hall is just such an amazing moment. It really just adds to the whole, this boy has now officially become a man. The way Radcliffe delivers...
It seems, despite your exhaustive defensive strategies, you still have a bit of a security problem, Headmaster.
It's perfect. And then when Professor McGonagall kicks Snape's ass in that duel, like... oh, it's so cool. And I also love the detail of Snape repelling the spells McGonagall fires at him and aims them at the Carrows, killing them, basically alluding to the fact that Snape is still on the good side. The construction of the shield around Hogwarts is amazing. I mean, Alexandra Desplat's score is just beautiful in that scene. Harry, Ron, and Hermione saving Draco from the Room of Requirement is a really great scene, and honestly, I just love the fact that they kept in probably one of my favourite lines from the book.
If we die for them, Harry, I'm gonna kill you!
The battle in the courtyard is just epic. I mean, the music, the destruction, the integration of all the magical creatures. It's just a genuinely great moment. Harry unlocking the resurrection stone from the snitch and finally seeing all of his family around him just before he goes to die is such an amazing sequence. I mean, it is so heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking in the book, and it's just as heartbreaking in the film. It's amazing. I love all the details. I love how Lily says always, obviously referring to Snape. I love the proud look of James's face as he stares at his son. And honestly, the one that broke my heart the most was Harry's interaction with Sirius. Like, Gary Oldman is amazing as Sirius, but also they keep his best moment from the book when Harry's like, does it hurt? Dying. And then Sirius is like, quicker than falling asleep. I love that line. And what's even better is that this film does an amazing callback to Prisoner of Azkaban, where Harry's like, and they won't be able to see you, will they? And he's like, no, because we're in here. And I'm like, oh, he's doing the heart thing from Prisoner of Azkaban. Like, it's the best scene.
I'm ready to die.
Wow, he kisses the snitch more passionately than he does Ginny. Voldemort killing Harry and Ralph Fiennes' delivery of Avada Kedavra is just so beautiful. Avada Kedavra! Avada Kedavra! The scene where Voldemort shows off Harry's dead body to the survivors of the battle is so great. I mean, we get this little gem here.
Harry Potter is dead!
And then when Harry leaps out of Hagrid's arms and then rejoins the battle, it's such a cool moment. Like when he's all like, Confringo! And then like the spell bounces off Nagini and then blows up the thing. Oh, it's so cool. Confringo! Now, Harry and Voldemort's final confrontation, I think, is an improvement from the books. I mean, when they're chasing each other through the clock tower, and then Voldemort's just like backhanding him.
Hey, you alright?
And then Harry does the whole, come on, Tom, let's do this the way we started it, together. And the way he does that, it almost looks like he gives him a little kiss. It's quite funny. And whilst I do think it is a better overall climax than in the books, I do have a big problem with it. In fact, it's probably the biggest problem I have with this entire film. At this moment in time, Harry is the master of the Elder Wand. So all of these Avada Kedavras and killing curses that Voldemort is throwing at Harry should be bouncing back and killing Voldemort, regardless of the fact that Nagini is still alive or not. And then in the film, the only time where it does rebound is after Nagini dies. Like, no. That is not how the magic in the books works. It's just so silly, like, come on, like, that's not how it works. Also, I'm not a fan of the way Voldemort dies. He just sort of disintegrates. That effect to me just, it doesn't work. Like, I get why they do it. It's the whole idea of that, like, he's broken his soul so many times that once he does die, there is nothing left of him. But it's just, I always imagine Tom Riddle's death, because the way Rowling writes it, it's like the killing curse rebounded and killed Voldemort, and Tom Riddle fell on the floor dead. I always imagined it as like, as Voldemort died, as he fell backwards, all that sort of dark metamorphosis he did to himself to make him more snake-like just disappeared, and we just see a dead, aged-up Tom Riddle on the ground. To me, that's how I would have done it. But at the end of the day, I don't care. The final battle between Harry and Voldemort is so cool. The moment where they do their Priori Incantatum, oh, I love it. Mark Day, who is the editor of this film, does a really cool editing moment where, like, the two of them do the thing with the wands. I'm just going to show you. It is amazing. Like, when I saw that, I was like, oh my god, that is so cool. Play it again. It's just the best! Now, Harry breaking the Elder Wand is actually a change from the book I do not mind, because actually I think it's the safest thing to do. It's the most logical thing to do too, because in the book, Harry's like, if I die a natural death, I don't need to, destroy the Elder Wand, because the magic from it will just die and it will just become a normal wand. And I'm like, Harry, you want to become an aura. He becomes an aura. You're going to be facing like dark wizards left, right, and center. If you die from one of these dark wizards, then they become the master of the Elder Wand. Them killing you doesn't count as a natural death, so like, why would you take the risk? Just destroy it. And the 19 years epilogue is faithfully recreated from the books, and at the end of the day, it would be nice to get an 8th Harry Potter story, just because, I don't know, I mean, yes, there is the Cursed Child, and I would like to see the Cursed Child in some way, shape, or form. It would have to be heavily adapted, but, I don't know, I kind of yearned for a older Harry Potter story. Harry in his 40s, Harry with his kids. What happened to the trio after they left Hogwarts? Like, I know J.K. Rowling has elaborated on it slightly, but it's not in full-on detail. Like, I just love a little story of Harry becoming head of the magical law enforcement or something like that. Just, I kind of want it. I'd love to have it. Now, you didn't think I'd forgotten this scene, did you?
Always.
Of course not. I saved the best scene for last. Snape's Memories is the best scene in the Harry Potter saga. The way it is edited, directed, the way Alan Rickman performs the scene. Oh my god, this scene is so heartbreaking. It always brings me to tears. The way Alexandre Desplat, sneaks in Nicholas Hooper's score of Dumbledore's farewell into the score. And then the moments where Snape sees dead Lily and he collapses to the ground. Alan Rickman's face, it breaks my heart every time. It makes me tear up. It is a genuinely powerful and moving scene It is gorgeous. It is the best scene in the film. Honestly, words just can't fully justify how great it is. And another thing too that just adds to the scene is the moment after where Harry emerges from the pensive and Daniel Radcliffe performs this scene of, I have to die. He has this realization of, I have to die for the greater good, but also Snape is not the person who I thought he was, and just everything about it is just so wonderful. You feel the weight, the importance, the gravitas, just, oh, it's the best. It is the best scene of all time. This is cinema. And overall, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 is my favourite Harry Potter film. It is just the best. It is the most action-packed, it is the most heartfelt, it is the best performed. All of it is just so wonderful. It's the best conclusion. It's a really perfect conclusion to this 8-film saga. Just, it is wonderful. But before I go, I'd like to just say a little something about the Harry Potter saga as a whole. To me, the Harry Potter saga is one of the best franchises in film history. It's a film franchise that is near and dear to my heart. Not only that, just Harry Potter in general is a thing that is near and dear to my heart. The books, the films, the video games, I mean, some of them aren't great, but I don't care. The whole identity of the intellectual property that is Harry Potter just means so much to me. These films truly just opened up my imagination, and the behind the scenes of the films especially, me watching those behind the scenes when I was like 7, 8, 9, 10, it really just got me interested in the idea of filmmaking. I think without watching the behind the scenes for these movies, I wouldn't be wanting to pursue a career in storytelling as a whole. Specifically filmmaking, like I watched those behind the scenes, and they were just amazing. They were captivating of how they managed to bring this world to life. And not only that, just the story of showing this young, abused boy, grow up throughout the years, find friends, and then just become this, great man that saves the wizarding world, finding himself. It's a beautiful story. And the films themselves capture that tone wonderfully. Even the ones that are slightly weaker, like Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows Part 1, just still, the movies just capture the magic of Harry Potter. And I mean, yes, the films have their problems. The screenplays do this thing where they take lines from the books, or they don't fully complete subplots from the books. And so, because they have these lines that are pulled from the books without paying them off, they're just there and they create more little problems and plot holes in the films, and you're kind of like, what is the point? But at the end of the day, I don't care. Sure, the Harry Potter films may have benefited from a longer runtime, maybe an extended edition situation, or maybe Harry Potter is just better suited as a HBO-style TV show like Game of Thrones, a 10-episode Harry Potter series, 7 seasons long. That would probably be the best way to do it, I'd say. But regardless of all that, I just want to say that Harry Potter remains such an integral part of who I am. It was my childhood. It teaches me all these values about love and friendship and the value of all that. And honestly, I'm just so grateful that it exists. Part of me still wishes that J.K. Rowling would make a continuation of the series. I mean, yes, we have Cursed Child, but like I said, it'd have to be heavily adapted. I just want more Harry Potter, in a way. And so if we can get that in the future someday, I'd be very much happy. But other than that, I'm glad we just have these wonderful movies and these amazing books. But that is my thoughts on Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, but also the Harry Potter film saga as a whole. I love these movies so much, but my question to you is, what is your favourite Harry Potter film? Do you agree with me? Do you think it's Deathly Hallows Part 2? Let me know in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, follow me on social media, all that good stuff. And until we meet again, see you guys next time.